Hey, Orion here. I've been podcasting for over 4 years now. 4 years. I started a bit unsure and insecure, but I am so much better and I'm a different woman today. I learned and grew so much. I grew as a person and I grew as a podcast host. And I had the privilege of talking with incredible people I never even imagined I can even reach. But regardless of how famous or not famous my guest is, sometimes you have a special conversation. One that is so stellar, you remember it even 4 years later. Welcome to Stellar Conversations. This is one of my absolute favorite episodes, and it will light up your day.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hello and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and I'm excited to introduce to you my friend, a dear friend of mine, and my mentor when it comes to organizing and being productive, and somebody that helped me greatly with organizing the way I conduct my business and organize my projects, and I am forever grateful. Mike Vardy is the founder of Productivityist and the host of Productivityist podcast. He's a 3-time author whose books include The Front 9, How to Start the Year You Want, Anytime You Want, The Productivityist Workbook, and Beyond Trying, and regularly contributes to outlets such as Lifehacker and The Huffington Post. I am so excited for you to hear this conversation. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna change your day. It's gonna make you taller, smarter, more attractive, or maybe just more productive. So you can get so much more out of your day than you're getting right now, because we live in an ADD world. There's so many distractions. There is so many things that show up, like family emergency. 2 days ago, I spent a whole night in the ER with my mom, and like things like that, they shake you, and it's hard to go and like center back and be really productive. And by the way, my mom is fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it. But what I'm trying to say is that in a world where there are so many distractions and apps that are calling you and people that are texting you and in your email inbox and all that, you got to learn how to organize your time, how to guard your time, and how to get the most out of your time, because you, my friend, your destiny is greatness, and you can be so much more, and you can achieve so much more. And I know that you want it. I know it's in your bones, because you know that your potential is infinite, and you can be so much, and you can do so much. And in order to be that person, you got to learn how to be productive and wake up productive, and with the mindset of prioritizing the things that you want to do. So without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hey, Mike, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Orion. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy that you're going to be on, because I'm sure you're going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. My thing whenever I go on a podcast, whenever I do anything, is really to bring what I can to the table. And if someone can take away one thing from our conversation today and apply it and get better at crafting their time, then that's a win.
I have to say that you've been such a blessing in my life because of everything that I learned from you.
Thank you.
Totally helped me. It's almost like, it seems like some people know how to organize naturally, but some people that are more like me, I'm very creative. I think about 10 different things at once. Organization for me is a little tougher.
Yeah. And you know what the funny thing is that I'm a creative too. And I really did struggle with organizing and keeping things kind of in perspective and making sure I wasn't overcommitting. And it's still something that I find challenging, which is why I have to have like a framework. It's why I must put this kind of thing in place. So if anything, it's kind of interesting, because I did comedy, I did acting, I'm a writer. So all that stuff that's been a part of my being since I was young. But because I've had so many ideas and so many things that I want to do and things that I feel that I need to do, because if I don't do them, then I feel like I'm not fulfilled by putting this framework in place. And initially it was somebody else's framework. Like I just started to gravitate towards other people's kind of productivity philosophies. But when you spend, as you know, if you spend a lot of time studying something, you get really good at you start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And maybe you start to carve out and craft out what you really want to do. So in essence, I mean, I take that as a compliment that you find that I'm really organized. I was just naturally, it's come to me, but it hasn't. Like I literally had to build something that would allow me to, even David Allen, he says, the reason he built the Getting Things Done productivity system is because he's lazy and he wanted to have something that would just allow him to move forward and make progress on things that would otherwise just lay stagnant. So that's why because I'm creative, because I have all these different ideas, because I want to move a whole bunch of things forward, and nobody can do that en masse. By building a framework and putting one in place, it's helped me. And then my goal is to take that framework and say, hey, would you like to give it a try? And I've done that with you and with countless other people, both through one-to-one coaching and through, just conversations like this.
Yes. And you're extraordinary. I've heard you speak and I got coaching from you and you're so good. So let's start with planning your year, planning for 3 months, planning for a month. How do you go about planning your year?
So for me, the year is kind of one of those things where I don't look at the year in terms of January to December. I'm not that kind of person. I don't think I've ever really been that kind of person. Again, I kind of followed the fold when it came to that. January is when you get a new calendar, so therefore it must be the start of the year. But there's so many other things that can play a factor in that. Your energy levels. I find that January, I'm at my lowest energy level. The weather is not, I live in Victoria, BC, Canada. From November till May, it's gray. Like if the sun comes out, it's a celebration, right? So January, you've just gone through this crazy holiday season. And if you're in America, you've got Thanksgiving before that. So you've almost got like 6 weeks of just hecticity, shopping, eating, food that you would probably not normally eat at any other time of year, but it's just, so there's maybe some gluttony going on there. And then on the 26th of December, after you go through this month of, and you're dealing with, family and all that stuff, which can be both a blessing and maybe challenging at the same time. Then on the 26th of December, you're basically given 5 days to come up with something phenomenal that you're going to tackle for the following 365 days. And the problem with that is that you make unrealistic expectations of yourself. You see all of the other people doing it, through whether you're looking at social media or the news or whatever. And you say, what, I'm going to get fit in 2018 or 2019 or whatever year it is. But the problem with that is you're not taking into account the ebb and flow of the months, of the seasons and all that stuff. So for me, I actually don't start my year until September. And I do that to mirror the school year for my kids, because where I live, my kids are out of school in July and August. So those are kind of like low ebb times. And then when they go back to school in September, we're ramping up for them. So it's just natural that we ramp up for my company and my work as well. And when I do that, I don't make resolutions per se. If anything, my resolution is to be resolute with the things that I do set out to do. What I'll do is in August, which is my month that I consider my planning month, which is a monthly theme, is I will actually set out monthly themes. So I'll say, hey, okay, what do I want September? What do I want my overarching focus to be in September? What do I want it to be in January? What do I want it to be in April? And I will use kind of like you're familiar with Tony Robbins' work. I know who you are, is that the basic human needs, and one is certainty and one is uncertainty.
Right.
Well, I work backwards from my certainties. So I know that in December, it is a very, very hectic month because of the holidays. But I also know it's the time of year where people are thinking about what they want to do in the, quote, Gregorian New Year. So that's where I might be focusing on outreach or something like that for a professional theme, but maybe for a personal theme, I'll be focusing on relationships. How do I reach out to people that maybe I haven't reached out to before, things like that. So I will develop both personal and professional themes for up to 12 months of the year. And the great thing about time crafting, and we've discussed this privately before, is that you don't have to do all 12 months. You could say, I'm going to theme like 4 of them, or I'm going to theme like 3 of them, or I'm going to theme 10 of them. And all a theme is an overarching focus. It's an emphasis on one thing. So, for example, we're recording this in April. My overarching focus, my monthly theme in April, is films. So it's about doing video work. So actually, before we got on the interview, I didn't know if we're going to do video. So I'm like, I gotta make myself look a little bit nicer. Your great ideas come in the shower, right? When you're not really thinking.
I know, they always do.
Yeah.
Or when I'm getting acupuncture on the acupuncture table, when I'm in a trance state, all kinds of amazing ideas come.
Well, and my wife's an acupuncturist too. I just had a treatment yesterday, actually, because
beautiful.
of sickness. So she's, I live with one. So I'm getting a lot of those.
Yeah. And when you said sickness, so our audience won't be worried about you. You just have a cold.
It's been a lingering cold. It's been for the past 3-4 weeks. So
Oh my God.
Yeah. Basically, after I last saw you, it literally started about a week after that, and it let up a little bit, but then I had to travel again, and that ramped it back up. So today is the first day where I woke up and I felt actually somewhat normal.
Oh.
And I'll talk about my theme days in a minute here, and how maybe that's something I can talk about too, is how to cope with it, how this works.
Yeah, that was another question, but yeah, we'll have to go back to it.
That.
There were so many things I want to talk to you about.
But when I'm in the shower, I was thinking I have to, because I've been unwell and I haven't been emailing my audience and stuff like that with my usual dailies, weekly newsletter, or the Vessel or anything like that. I thought, I'm going to I should send them an email today just saying, hey, I know I've been a bit away, and you've probably seen why if you've been following me on social. And normally I would write that, but I'm thinking, oh, wait, no, this month is video month. So I should make a video. I should do an email that links to a video that shares it. Now, because I've got that monthly theme, my mind went there. It funneled towards there because it's been set in stone for months. So that kind of focus, when you theme time, whether it's your months, which is what I do when I'm planning my year, but you can even theme a week, which I call weekly sprints, or you theme your days, which you and I have talked about before too, where every day gets an overarching focus. All of a sudden, you go from this massive to-do list that looks like you've got so many things to do and no structure to it to, instead of the question, what am I going to do today? The question becomes, what day is it? Oh, it's Friday. What's Friday mean? Oh, that's deep work day. Okay, great. So now I'm going to look at all the deep work that I've decided that I've categorized as deep. Okay, there's 43 tasks now. Okay, well, what's my monthly theme? Oh, it's films. Now all of a sudden I went from 43 to 4. So all of a sudden it just really funnels your focus. And then you can really make every moment matter. Not every minute, because I think when you start to think in terms of minutes versus moments, minutes are quantitative where I think moments are qualitative, right? You remember like yesterday, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but my wife and I were watching, there's this new show called Alex Incorporated, and it's about the guy who founded Gimlet Media, and it's kind of like how he quit his job and started a company.
Is it a podcast?
It's a TV show based on a podcast.
Oh, they made a TV show.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's interesting. It just started as we're recording this, and Zach Braff, who was on Scrubs and he is in the movie Garden State and stuff like that. He's the star.
Wow. Seriously. I used to listen to that podcast. Wow.
Yep. So you should check it out. But the thing is, I'm watching it and it hits really close. Like I pause the show and I look at my wife and I say, I watch TV to escape, or I listen to podcasts to escape. I don't always want to see things that are so close to home, right? Like about your business and things like that. And I said, I feel that this show, as much as it's a comedy, it's really hitting close to home. Like the family, he quit his job. I did the same thing when I left Costco. I quit my job and didn't really have a fully fledged plan in place. We dipped into savings, all that stuff. And at the end of the episode, so it was when I journal, and I journal every day at the end of the day, I wrote about that in my journal. I said, I've been watching the show Alex Incorporated. It's only been around for 2 episodes. I don't know if I'm going to watch it anymore because it's not the escape that I'm seeking. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the show. It's just that's not what I sit down to watch TV with my wife, especially since she was basically, her and I were watching it together we're watching our life replay a little bit in front of our eyes. And then there was another moment we watched this other show called Life in Pieces, which is another funny show. It's and there's this couple that reminds us of us. And it's like 4 little vignettes. And one of the vignettes has this kid who's, I think, like 10, starting to talk like baby talk because there's a younger kid that's getting more attention. And our son has been doing that this week. So literally, we watched this Alex Incorporated show where we thought this is a little too close to home. And then immediately after that, this other show comes on that we recorded, and it does something that is really close to home. And my wife starts like literally laughing. She spit take. Like she starts laughing. I'm like, what is this? And we both start laughing. That went in my journal. I couldn't tell you how many minutes we spent doing that, but it's a moment. And I think when you start to focus on qualitative stuff, like your energy levels is very qualitative. Your themes, again, what you want to focus on in terms of emphasizing your energy and your attention towards. Those are very qualitative, where I think with productivity, what happens a lot when people plan out their year is they say, I have 365 days or I have 120 days. What can I accomplish in 120? They get very quantitative. And that's when they start thinking about checking off as many boxes as possible, as opposed to checking off the right boxes. And I think that the way I do this, and I have a course on this called the Now Year Action Plan that kind of goes through how I work through this process, no matter what time of year. I think what can happen here is you really establish a qualitative productivity and plan for your year. And then you kind of insert the old habits of checking off as many boxes as possible and looking at your schedule and figuring out how much you can fit in a day. It gets tempered a bit by these larger focuses, these larger goals, these ones that really are your intentions, and you find a way to pay better attention to them.
It's the difference between being task-oriented and goal-oriented. People get so stuck in the little things that they're doing. This is a friendly reminder for you to visit www.stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes and information about this awesome show. Check out our Facebook group, Stellar Life. Sorry, boys, this is for women only. And get all information, including a checklist full of tips from the show at www.stellarlifepodcast.com. And if you're enjoying yourself, please subscribe and review. And now, back to the show. When we worked together, we were looking at my checklist and like, okay, do I really have to do all this today, or can this wait for another day? What's the most urgent? And then you actually prioritize what's need to be done. And you see that many of your to-do lists are actually things that are not urgent.
And the other thing is, what you end up doing is you end up pushing the thing when you define your day, which is one of the things I talk about, which is when you theme your days, is you could say, okay, normally what people do is they say, oh, I can't do this today. I'll just push it off till tomorrow, and then the next tomorrow. And it never really happens. But if, like, so for example, as I mentioned, I've been sick, and this is where theme days can really be helpful, because Wednesday is my audio day. So normally, and interestingly, normally I would not do this interview any other day but on a Wednesday. But because I've been sick, I opened up a day that I would not normally do any meetings, because it's an exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. And you know this too, because I normally don't do meetings we're recording this on a Friday. I normally don't talk to anybody.
And thank you for that.
I'm not trying to say that, like, it's more of a, hey, I recognize I've been out of commission for a while. I want to show character and integrity and make sure that I'm living up to my obligations. So if I've inconvenienced people, or if I've been out of commission, I need to adjust. And it's very easy for me to adjust, because what happens is when you and I are done this call, I have another meeting with somebody I was supposed to have a meeting with earlier this week. But then when I'm done that, I don't go, well, now what do? I say, what day is it? Oh, it's Friday. Friday's deep work day. Okay, let's get back to the deep work. So I'm able to zero back in on things, as opposed to getting distracted or diverted or derailed. And what's great about theming your days, like, for example, my audio day, and we've talked about this before, is my podcast, I actually have interviews recorded for at least 6 weeks in advance now. So we're 6 weeks ahead, and we have guests booked all the way until September.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And the thing is, how do you do all those interviews? I'm like, well, they're done on, and no one is doing an interview any other day but Wednesdays. And here's the thing, is I'm not doing any interviews in July and August because my kids are home from school. So I don't want to be telling the kids, hey, keep it down out there while I'm trying to do a podcast interview. I don't want to have that open. So basically, at this point, Orion, there's one more week available for people to book guests. So, and I know, based on the way I've created this availability, that there will probably be 3 more guests, which will take me all the way through till the end of September. So I would imagine that by the end of April, at the latest, I will have guests booked all the way through until the beginning of October. Now, this week, I basically did my interviews that I was scheduled to do, and that was it. I didn't do any other audio work. I didn't do any other extra work. Even though I had this list of things I could do, I knew, you know what, I'm not feeling 100%. By the time I was done 3 interviews, I was wiped out. So I messaged my editor. I said, you have everything you need for the next, we're way ahead. I'm taking the rest of the day off because I'm still sick. He knows by my work habits, and I know, because I've programmed it this way, that any of those tasks that I was going to do this Wednesday, the default isn't to push them to Thursday or Friday or Saturday. It's to push them to the following Wednesday, which is the next audio day. And the great thing about that is I can look at all those tasks and say, okay, these should go to the next audio day. But then I can look at them and go, okay, are any of these more urgent and they need to be done earlier? So instead of me just ad hoc throwing them to the random days, I have a very clear place where they're supposed to go by definition. And then if there are exceptions to the rule, I can play with them. And what you find when you journal during this process is you find, hey, you know what? I'm finding there's way more exceptions. Maybe only having one day for audio doesn't work. Maybe only having one day for writing doesn't work, which is what I had for a while. Maybe I need to spread that over the course of an entire week, which is what I call a horizontal theme, where you block out times of day. And what you do is you're really kind of, people have more control over the time than they think. That's the thing, is people go, I don't have time to think of this. If you say I don't have time to block out time to have these kind of themes, then you absolutely need to do that. It's kind of like when people say, I don't have time to meditate. And I'm sure you've come across this. If you say you don't have time to meditate, you absolutely must meditate. It seems counterproductive to take time in your day, in your moments, in your weeks, in your months, whatever, to slow down, because you're like, well, slowing down means you're not going to be productive. But productivity isn't about speed. Efficiency isn't about speed. Efficiency is about doing the right things in a fashion that allows them to be done faster.
Lao Tzu said that tactics without strategy is like the sound before the feet. If you don't take the time to strategize, you're just going to busy work, and you're going to be busy. And people are so proud of being busy, but
Yep.
It's the difference between being busy to being productive. And Mike, I want to go deeper into the themed days.
Sure.
So I themed my months. What are some example of your themed months, themed weeks, and themed days? And what is the horizontal way of theming, blocking time?
Sure. So I'll give you some example. I'll give you my monthly themes. And by the way, these can move, and they have in some instances. So just because you plan them, whatever time of year you plan them, that's why it's called the Now Year Action Plan, because you could start today. You could start in 2 months. When you start your year, it's not important so much as when, is that you do it correctly, is that you do it in a way that works for you. So my themes are generally based, like I said, I've got personal and professional ones, and occasionally there are what I call hybrid themes. So in March, for example, I had a hybrid theme called relationships, which meant I worked on my work relationships and I worked on my personal relationships.
Oh,
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you could do that. I'll give you examples of themes throughout the rest of my year, which will end in August, and then kind of give you some ideas of what you might want to choose for monthly themes, that if you want to pick some quick things to do, some quick wins to see some results. So for example, this month, as I said, was films. May is the podcast, and we're rebranding the podcast too. So that's when a lot of those plans will start to be implemented. We're going to do some best of episodes in October. During the month of October, it'll be just best of episodes. Mm-hmm. So those will be programmed in May, which is what, like 5 months from, or 4 months from October, or 5 months from October. June is the website. So even though we're going to be launching a new website in November, we're starting it in June, because you need like 5 months to do it. So by looking at that, instead of me saying to myself, oh man, I really wish I had a new website, which I do, my brain doesn't do that anymore. It goes, well, it'll wait till June. It'll keep till June. It'll keep till June, right? July is a hybrid theme. It's self-care month.
Oh,
It's my birthday in July. The kids are out of school. So we'll probably do some really cool travel. We'll do some things. We'll do some outdoor stuff. And it's self-care for both work and home. So I'll probably strip out some projects that don't really matter anymore, or I'll maybe delegate more, things like that. And then August is planning month, which makes it, and August is traditionally planning month for me because I start my year in September. And so my focus will be on personal planning and professional planning. Now, this past year, September, my focus in September was, if I look, was to work on my book. And it didn't work out. It was a missed opportunity. I had too many other things going on, and I journaled about it. So I said, it didn't work in September. Something else happened in September, and I couldn't tell you right now. I'd have to go back and look at my journal to tell you, but it didn't get the focus it needed. October, the focus was on digital products, and that worked. So I stripped out a lot of my old digital products, updated new ones, et cetera. And again, we're talking about professional. November was the book, and that did work because what I did was I outlined my book. I got that started. We are now in the process of writing the book Time Crafting, which will be published. The plan is to have it published no later than November 1st, which is when everything changes, because I call November Nowvember. Yeah. December's focus was on my membership. So it was to focus on Patreon and what I'm going to be doing with that. So plans around that. January, the focus was on coaching, which we revamped our coaching programs. And February was focusing on speaking and workshops, which is when I went in and updated what workshops I was going to do. I started to put together a better speaker reel, getting testimonials, things like that. So what that does is it just gives you some overarching focus. Now, some things you can choose for monthly themes, and I'm going to be writing about this very soon, and I thought about this again the other day, is the idea of habits that you want to kick. So for example, as of this recording, and you were with me and we were at Social Media Marketing World in March, and you noticed I was drinking coffee, right? When we were at the party. Mm-hmm. I quit drinking alcohol in February. I just decided I didn't want to drink it anymore. Great. And it wasn't like I had a problem or anything like that. It literally was just like, yeah, it's just messing with my energy. And I think my quote was in my journal when I was sitting waiting for a friend to show up, and I had a beer in front of me. I looked at it and was like, you know what? I don't really need this anymore. I think I've had all the beers. And that's literally what I put in there. And so as of this recording, it's been over 60 days. Nice. So, and I've done 90 days abstinence before and stuff like that. But this time I just don't feel like it's something that I want to do. So you could do things like, okay, so instead of saying get fit, let's say your New Year's resolution is to get fit. Maybe January should be like to do like a Whole30 program. You are cutting out sugar. Or maybe your monthly theme in January would be to declutter. And that includes like decluttering your pantry. So getting rid of all the processed sugars and stuff like that. But decluttering can fit like a whole bunch of things. You could talk about decluttering your office, decluttering your home. Like there's so many things. But what you can do is with that one New Year's resolution that you've been keeping or wanting to keep or figuring that you can't keep is to break it down like you would a task like write a book. Well, writing a book is not a task. It's a project. So you might want to say, instead of writing a book, you might want to say write 1,000 words or write 500 words, which is definitely easier for you to do. So instead of you saying, I'm going to get fit, or I'm going to create a better environment for myself, both physically and emotionally, maybe that's a better resolution. Then you could say, okay, January is about decluttering. February is about doing the Whole30. March is about getting outdoors. So it's my outdoors month. I know where you live, that would definitely work here. Maybe April is I want to learn another language. That was one of mine, actually. I started to learn French a bit more. So that's how the monthly themes can work. And we can touch on daily themes now a bit as well.
Yeah, and weekly as well.
And weekly. So weekly sprint, we'll do weekly sprints first. So weekly sprints they override monthly themes. So for example, if you have, like, I will tell you that this month I do have a weekly sprint. And it's for personal. It's called gardening prep. So it's a weekly sprint because I want to get the garden ready because next month is my gardening month for personal stuff. So my overarching focus isn't working on home improvement this month, which is my monthly theme. But for this week, it's for just getting the garden ready. So I've been weeding or trying to. I've been figuring out plans. If I get better this weekend, I will go out and do that. And if not, then I'll just move it to the next week. Like that's not a big deal. But weekly sprints are generally what you want to do with weekly sprints is you want to have them begin and end. You want to make massive progress on them in a 7-day span. So that's why I call them sprints as opposed to themes. And then once that's done, then your monthly theme takes back over. Now, there's a group of people called multi-potentialites. Emily Wapnick talks about this in her book, How to Be Everything. A lot of multi-potentialites won't do monthly themes. They'll do 52 weekly sprints, or they'll do 25 or whatever. And that way they can move up to 52 things forward in a very short period of time. So if you're somebody that wants to do a lot and wants to have like really dense weeks that you have a focus and you can really finish off projects in a 7-day span, you might want to incorporate that. But no matter what, they override the monthly theme. So you could theme your months. And I normally have about, I think maybe 6 to 10 weekly sprints a year at the most, because they are more intense. Mm-hmm. Daily themes are, and I'll talk about the difference between daily themes and horizontal themes as well. But daily themes are by day of the week. And I have a lot of people saying, I can't possibly theme a day. And then what I'll say to them is, okay, well, I'll do a classic pattern breaking thing. Again, a lot of Tony Robbins stuff here. I'm like, when do you do laundry? And they're like, oh, normally Saturdays. Really? Well, what else do you do Saturdays? Well, a lot of housework. I clean the house. I do errands for the house. Like, so you do a lot of household stuff on Saturday. They're like, yeah. So what you're saying is Saturday is kind of like a household day. Right. Yeah. And then they go, oh, like, yeah, you're already doing it. Like you're already doing it for some days of the week. And here's the thing. You don't have to do it for every day of the week. Mm-hmm. But if you give each day an overarching focus, it's much easier to wake up in the morning and ask yourself the question, what day is it? Because it's a definite answer. I mean, you're not going to wake up on a Wednesday and go, it's Friday. Like you're not. You know it's Wednesday. And then Wednesday means something. You've defined your day. Wednesday is audio day. And again, you have to work backwards from your certainty. So I have kids. My kids are sometimes out of school on Mondays and Fridays, depending on school activity days, right? Like the pro D days that the teachers get. So on Mondays and Fridays, Monday is my optimization day, which is things I do to make my business better. And Friday is my deep work day. If I lose a deep work day, no big deal. If I lose a optimization day, again, no big deal. But I can't afford to lose a video day, which is Tuesday. Kids are never out of school on Tuesdays. Never. On Wednesdays is audio day. They're never out of school on Wednesday either. So those 2 days, I know that I can have zero interruptions, which is why those days are scheduled like that. And then Thursday is what I call my training day because my wife is home with me on Thursday. She helps run the business. So we're training each other. I also do a lot of my coaching calls on Thursdays. I do a lot of learning myself. So any kind of research or learning I'm going to do is going to be on Thursdays. And then Friday, like I said, is deep work day. Some deep work can be learning too. So you want your themes to be broad enough that you can fit things into them and you can kind of justify it. Like that's why I said like household day is a good day because you could do laundry on household day. You can run errands on household day. You can spend time with your family on household day because they live in your household. Like you can find ways, you know what I mean? Like you can do that. And then Saturday and Sunday, Saturday used to be exclusively family day and Sunday was my planning day because I start my week on a Sunday. But oddly enough, on one of my trips to California this year, my first trip, my wife asked me as we were driving to the airport, we were talking about Saturday being family day. And she said, and she was very hesitant to ask this because she knows my themes are really, they help me and they help all of us move forward. And she said, the weather can be a bit hit and miss. Like Saturday, sometimes it's raining and Sunday it's beautiful. She goes, would you be okay with like maybe deciding based on that day, whether it's planning or family? And I said, and here's the thing, about 3 years ago, if I didn't have this framework in place, I would have lost my mind. I'm like, well, how? No, but because all I have to do is say, all right, if Saturday is going to be planning day this week, then I just look at the planning tag in Todoist or in things if you're looking at things, that area or a tag or whatever. And then on Sunday, I would look at family. So it was a very easy switch for me to say, sure, no problem. No fuss, no muss, not a big deal. Because I have those themes. So my brain it's not worried about what it needs to do based on a list. It's worried about based on a big list. It's worried about what needs to do based on a much smaller list. And then horizontal themes, they override daily themes, much like weekly sprints override monthly themes because horizontal themes are time of day. And I'll give you a great example of that really quickly. So Tuesday never used to be my video day. Tuesday used to be my administrative day. And while I was at Social Media Marketing World, you and I both know the big message at that and at Traffic and Conversion were video all day, every day.
Right.
You must invest more time in video.
Yes.
And so I had already been thinking that what was happening on Tuesday was that it wasn't enough time for me to do all my administrative work. I also found that, and this is a dangerous part about daily theming that you've got to watch for, is you could just putz around all day with something that's very trivial. So administrative tasks for me are very trivial. They're not really deep. And because I'm more of a night owl, by the time the night rolled around, if I was still doing, these administrative tasks, I really wasn't using my attention levels to their best use cases. I should be making something. I should be doing something bigger. So while we were at Social Media Marketing World, I decided, you know what? Tuesday is going to be video day because Wednesday was audio and video together. And then what I did was I created 3 horizontal themes because remember I said I used to have a writing day as well. So I looked at my circadian rhythms, which I think is really important. I don't think people value their energy levels when they tackle their to-do lists or their tasks nearly as much as they should. And there's this great book called The Power of When by Dr. Michael Breus.
He was on this podcast.
I've had him on my show as well. And we talked about, there's the lion, there's the bear, there's the dolphin, and there's the wolf, right? I'm a wolf, and he's a wolf too. I don't know. What are you? Do you know what you are? Are you more of a...
I'm a bear, I think.
And bear is the most common. My wife's a bear as well.
Yeah, but I'm a special bear. I'm a unicorn bear.
Oh, you're a unicorn bear. Okay. I don't know if my wife's a unicorn bear.
So for our listeners, I just want them to...
Give them context, sure.
Yeah, give him context. So Dr. Breus, what he does, there are 4 animals, dolphin, bears, owls, and what was the other one?
Wolves and lions.
Wolves and lions.
Yeah, owls you would do because we're night owl. I get that. But he actually calls them wolves.
Yeah, so every animal is more productive in different times of the day, also for sexual energy levels and for feeding times. And every person has a different circadian rhythm. So you might be a wolf where you work during the night. You might be a bear where like my perfect time to wake up it's a 7 a.m. And if you're a lion, your perfect time to wake up is at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So we all have different times that we are more productive in during the day.
And dolphins are the unique brand where they are both, they're people that struggle with sleep. So they have, because dolphins have, well, I mean, you should go read the book because you're right. The book breaks down like, when is the best time for you to have an argument with somebody based on your chronotype? When is the best time for you to have sex? When is the best time for you to brainstorm? Stuff like that. So that's what I did, is I went to my copy, and I use it a lot anyway, but I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to set up my horizontal themes this way. So I realized, like, as a wolf, I'm not very good in the mornings. So I wanted to do like these administrative tasks, the ones that take very little energy for me to do in the morning. So basically from all 7 days of the week, including Saturdays, I've created this thing called maintaining mode. And that's what administrative work for me is. It's just keeping things level, keeping things status quo, making sure nothing is falling apart. So from 9 to 10 a.m., Sunday through Saturday, that's the modality that I get into. So, and it overrides, like today, for example, even though it's my deep work day on Friday, from 9 to 10, I focused on maintenance, like maintaining work. And I have a way to look at that in my task list. And any good task list or to-do list application or any good framework, you should be able to look at this and go, oh, here are all the tasks that are maintenance. Here are all the tasks that are my next block, which is from 2 to 4 p.m., which is the best time for me to do creative work, is called my making mode. So I'm making stuff from 2 to 4. So even on, like, say, Monday, which is my optimization day, I will be making something between 2 and 4. On my family day, between 2 and 4, that's probably when I'm best playing Lego with my son, right? Because that's when I'm going to be at my most creative. And then from 10 to midnight is my musing mode. And that's when I'm best. That's where Dr. Breus says you're best at brainstorming and thinking and things like that. So like just wrapping up your day. So that's when I'll meditate at the very beginning of that. And then I will go into journaling and planning out my next day and stuff like that. So that block of time is, again, Sunday through Saturday. So I've got these 3 horizontal themes: maintaining mode, making mode, and musing mode. And they work really well because they override the daily theme, but they allow me. And the great thing about that too is that I'm not worried about when I'm going to get these little administrative tasks done, or I'm not worried about on a Thursday when I'm in training day that when am I going to make stuff? Oh yeah, between 2 and 4. Or when am I going to get this journal done? Oh, between 11 and midnight, that kind of thing. So having those all set up, it may sound, as you're listening to this, incredibly rigid, but it's incredibly freeing because when you think about it, today is Friday. The only things that are listed on my schedule are the appointments I've made with others, which are rare. And then all I'm looking at is, okay, I'm focusing on deep work. Oh, it's 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I'm focused on maintenance. Oh, from 10 to 2, I'm doing more deep work. Oh, from 2 to 4, I'm making something, maybe something as a result of all the deep work. Or maybe I was in deep work mode and making something anyways, because sometimes, they cross over. And then from 4 to, from 4 till 10 at night, I'm in deep work mode more than anything else. And then from 10 to midnight, I go to musing mode. So I don't really have. The thing that drives me nuts, Orion, and I think that this is a real problem too, is this thing called hyperscheduling, where people put in their calendars
too much, just too much.
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to check my email between 9 and 10. Why not go to communication mode between 9 and 10? Because it gives you a few more options. People need choice. If they don't feel that they have choice, and if they don't feel they've created that choice, then they rebel against it. They feel like instead of I need to do this, it becomes I have to do this. And those are 2 very different ways of looking at things.
Mm-hmm. Have to do versus get to do.
Right. Because you've designed it that way. You've defined it. And I think that when people look at time crafting in this way, which is really what you're doing, your craft, and it never ends, right? Like a craftsperson never stops getting better at their craft. They want to hone their craft consistently. And it's like a lot of people will look at their finances and pay attention to them and hone their investments and make sure that everything. But do you do that for your time? Well, money comes and goes in a lot of cases, right? You can earn money back. You cannot earn time back. Yeah. Time is your most valuable resources. And you mentioned Lao Tzu earlier. And when people say, well, I don't have time to do that, Lao Tzu's great quote, time is a man-made construct. Saying I don't have time is like saying I don't want to.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. And Mike, just to circle back, I just want to let the listeners know that if they want to listen to Dr. Breus on Stellar Life Podcast, they just have to check episode 34, and we're going to have the link in the show notes. So this is amazing, everything that you shared so far. And I'm like, it's like drinking from a fire hose with you. You're so good. I want to shift a little bit into some of your favorite apps, favorite productivity apps, and how you use them.
Okay, so I'll put a little corollary, a little preamble in front of this. I've always said focus on the app within first.
Ooh, that's okay. That's the first question. How do we do that?
You build a framework. You have a framework that will work in any app that you want. So we've seen apps come and go. I used to write a lot more technical stuff because I used to write for Cult of Mac and the Next Web and things like that. That's where I got kind of cut my teeth a little bit. But the problem with that is that apps come and go. And if you rely on an app, let's say Things. Well, Things is a great example. I know you use Things. I'm using it a bit more too because I really like what they've done with it. But in its early stages, there was a point where it wasn't syncing. You couldn't have it synced between different devices, and that people were frustrated by that. But if you build your entire platform on something that doesn't work for you, then realistically, you're not going to get as much out of it. You're not going to be productive. And then you end up blaming the tool, right? It's like people who download Evernote, put all of their paper goods in Evernote, and then they say, well, now all my mess that was on my desk is now in Evernote, and Evernote was supposed to fix this for me. No, you need to go in with intent. My big belief of productivity is intention plus attention. So, hey, I want to be able to access my tasks quickly and do what Mike has suggested here. Okay, great. Then you need to pay attention to things like, what are the best modes for me to use? What are my best themes? You need to take the time to do that stuff. And then you can use tools like Things, and you and I have done this, where it's like, okay, these areas are going to be named after my daily themes. And then the tags are going to be named after my modes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, like, when we get into the app space, there are really good apps out there. But again, you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation of your own framework before going in. Basically, if you can do it you should be able to do whatever you do on paper in an app. If you can't, then you need to come up with a way where if you've written something down on paper, it can translate to the app very easily. And I've done this with time crafting. But I'll give you some examples with tools. If you work by yourself, if you're not working with a team, and you're on the Mac or iOS platform, Things is a phenomenal choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. When discovering that for me, it was like discovering a treasure.
Yeah.
It was.
Now, Things does have Things Cloud, so you can collaborate with others, but it's not expressly designed for that. If you are collaborating with other people, then you have to take into account a few things. Number one, you have to take into account what platforms they're using, which means they might be using a Windows machine and you're using a Mac, or you might be using a Windows machine and they might not ever go onto a computer and they're using an Android device. That's where you probably want to look at, if you're a small business or you're a small person, you're only collaborating with a few people or even just doing it personally, you want to look at a tool like Todoist, which is very clean, minimal, streamlined. It looks really great and you can collaborate with people on projects. There's so many things you can do with it. I believe a great app should be as simple as you want it to be, but as powerful as you need it to be. Another app, if you're running a much larger business or you're running a business where it's going to scale, you want to use a tool maybe like Asana, which is what I use with my team, because it has the ability to really scale. You can have conversations inside of it. You can have dependent tasks. You can list projects either in a list form or in a board form, which is what some people who would use, like, say, Trello or something like that would like. But it allows for scale. You can have up to 15 people on Asana for free. So if you have a team of, like, say, and a lot of virtual assistants out there will have more experience with a tool like Asana than they would with, say, Todoist. So those are I would look at Things, Todoist, and Asana are probably my three favorite. There are a lot of other ones out there. Wunderlist, which is transforming into Microsoft To Do, is good. Trello is good if you're a very visual person. TickTick is another one that people really like. There's a lot of them. And I think we get stuck in this. There's so many options that you end up in this paralysis through analysis kind of situation. So when you're going to look for an app, like let's say you decide that you're going to get Things, try to find a resource that will teach you how to use it or give you some kind of preamble. Like my buddy Sean Blanc, he's got a course called All the Things. It not only talks about how to use Things, but he talks about the fundamentals of why you should use Things or why you should use a tool at all.
I recommend people just work with you.
Or work with me. Yeah. I mean, I do app stuff for sure because I've been spending a lot of time with them. But again, it's the frameworks first. Focus on the app within, because if you don't do that first, then no app will save you. And I'll finalize it with another thing. Like, I love using Evernote for storing information. It's where all my research goes. A lot of my articles begin in Evernote. Do not use Evernote for time and task management. It does not have projects set up. out of the box. It has reminders, but you have to reset those reminders. At the time of this recording, it is not set up for, it's not the ideal for task management. It is more of an information. Think of it as a digital filing cabinet. So if you're thinking about using Evernote for your to-do lists, think differently. You could use it for checklists. Sure. Yeah. You could use it for checklists. So if you're like trying to keep track of, I'll give you a quick example. We live, like you, on the fault line, right? Like, so if there's an earthquake, we want to have an emergency kit ready.
We just had one yesterday.
Yeah, I know you guys.
My house was shaking. It was interesting.
So we're right on that. And they're always talk about the big one. Well, we're building an earthquake kit, which we should have done a long time ago. And in Evernote, I have a checklist of all the things that are in the earthquake kit, along with a picture of what it looks like, all that stuff. That's perfect for Evernote. But you're not going to put in there like build earthquake kit. That should be in a tool like Things or Todoist or something like that, because that's what it's designed for. So don't try to, if you're using Evernote for something like note taking and stuff like that, I know there's this thought that, hey, if I can use one app for everything, then I should be able to do that. But I used to work for Costco and I love Costco, but there's certain things, and because you can get almost anything at Costco, but there's certain things that you just don't want. You know, you're not going to go into Costco and get
like parsley.
Yeah. You're not going to get, like, so for example, I like grass-fed butter. You're not going to find that at Costco necessarily all the time. You're not going to find non-alcoholic beer, which is what I do drink now, or at least good non-alcoholic beer at Costco necessarily. So just because your app can be a one-stop shop or a Swiss Army knife doesn't mean it should be. It's probably better for you to get a screwdriver, like an actual screwdriver, than to use the screwdriver that's in your Swiss Army knife. So that's just one cautionary tale, is get a dedicated to-do list app that will manage projects and your priorities and all that stuff, because you're going to be far better off with it. And again, have that framework in place beforehand so you can translate it into that app. And then if that app goes belly up, all you have to do is go, okay, well, I'll move it to the next one. Oh, this next one also will allow me to use my framework. Great.
Mike, I want to ask you about the desire to do all this and the desire to have the motivation and passion to move forward. Because like you said, some days you're sick, some days you don't feel like it, some days... What do you do when you don't feel like doing anything?
I think that's one of the reasons I built the daily themes into play and the monthly themes, to be honest, is to kind of direct my focus and funnel it a little bit. Like, so for example, the last 3 weeks, I've not been doing a heck of a lot. But when I've gotten up, I still have programmed into my head, like Monday's optimization day. What can I do for optimization? Oh, well, I'm sick. I should get some acupuncture because that will optimize me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right. So having those generalized themes has helped me, and using energy levels as modalities. So for example, I have a tag in Todoist, which is what I use for personal stuff. It's called shallow work, which is the opposite of deep work. So I've done a lot of shallow work tasks while I've been sick. I've been doing a lot of thinking, which is an activity-based mode while I've been sick. I've been doing some reading. So just the nice thing is when you have these in place, you're not scattered and you have some choice. So instead of worrying about accomplishing as much as possible, you could say, look, I feel like crap today. What are all my low energy tasks? Oh, look, there's 4 of them. If I do those 4, then I've done the best I can do for today with this stuff. And for me, a low energy task would be very different than what you would consider a low energy task. That's why personal productivity is so personal. It's subjective. Ultimately, what we want to do is work subjectively to reach a mutual objective. So the other thing that can fuel desire is writing in your journal, like keeping a daily journal. I have kept a journal for, I think the last, I want to say between 4 and 6 years. I'd have to look again.
Nice.
But I could go back and look at, and I almost did this. I almost did this today where I was going to because I don't get sick very often, but when I get sick, it sticks around. I could go back and look in a journal and see the last time I was sick. So I could say, hey, you know what? I haven't been sick since February 2017, and I could say, and here's how I felt. And a lot of people go, well, what's the point of taking time to journal? I don't understand. I could just look at my calendar or my day planner and see what I did. I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to get the feelings. You're not going to get the context. Like, again, I did not put in my task list yesterday to watch that show with my wife or watch those shows with my wife. But in my journal, I went about how we felt about that. And it led to so much more. And journaling, that reflection, that slowing down rekindles that. Like, you better connect with yourself.
Yes.
You're disconnecting from it. So you better connect with yourself, which allows you to move forward. Like yesterday, I still wasn't feeling great. I almost canceled my meeting with my writing coach, who I think, no, you didn't meet, but Stefan did. I met with him anyway because meeting with my writing coach stoked the fires a little bit more. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't be getting back to writing and he said, don't start writing again till Sunday. Take the rest of the weekend to get better.
Nice. Smart coach.
Right. But the thing is if I didn't meet with him, I might have just, again, I wouldn't have had that direction. I wouldn't have had that focus. So if any of your listeners, or have you read Gretchen Rubin's The Four Tendencies at all yet?
No.
Her new book? It's really good because it does provide some insights as to what you tend to do. And I tend to be an obliger. That's one of the four tendencies, which I resist inner expectations, but I meet outer expectations. So by building this framework of time crafting, I can, like you said, I'm really organized and stuff like that. But by creating that, there's another tendency called the upholder, which both meets inner and outer expectations. By building that framework, I can look more like an upholder. I'm able to kind of trick my brain into going, Mike, remember, here's all the things that you want to do for yourself, which ultimately will help you meet the expectations that others expect of you, like, bringing in revenue for a living and stuff like that. So I would recommend that's another great book to read because it's a lot. I mean, Gretchen has spent a lot of time in it. She's not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, psychologist, but she spent a lot of time researching it. And there's a lot of things in there that I found by looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is why when I'm working with a client, for example, and they start asking a lot of questions, it's not that they're attacking me, it's that they are a questioner, which is by nature what they do. They meet inner expectations but resist outer expectations. Or my son, who follows into more of the rebel tendency, because not only
that will be me.
Yeah, well, it's you resist inner and outer expectations. So again, instead of having a to-do list, you have a could-do list, which is so when I'm teaching rebels, so for example, with you, when we're coaching, I could say, hey, look, what are the things that you like to do? Well, I like to spend time reading. And okay, great. Maybe one of your daily themes should be reading and researching. And that's what your focus is. And then you have choice within that, right? So you could say, hey, I'm going to read about whatever I want, but today's the day I read, right? So you create boundaries.
I think I'm a hybrid of your type and your son's type.
Yeah, so you're probably a rebel upholder, a rebel obliger. I mean, and that my wife's an obliger rebel, so she's an obliger, but she'll tip towards rebel. And I mean, I think it's worth reading. It's a really great. She wrote The Happiness Project and Better Than Before and all that stuff.
Nice.
But I think this book is the one that has. I think this is her seminal work, and this is the one that's going to be. And there's a quiz you can do and all that stuff. And her and I actually just spoke this past week because I'm going to be part of her course that she's working on. So
nice.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, again, I think you learn a lot through introspection and thinking, and believe it or not, slowing down, taking time. If you slow down, you start to think about like you said, do I really need to do this task at all? Can I delegate it? Do I need to do it today? Like you start to really. You let that part of your brain that has reason on its side. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're just going, it's that primitive part of your brain that just goes, hey, I just got to keep going because I'm just trying to survive. That's why people say the word busy. I'm busy. When you say I'm busy, it loses its power. I throw this quote around a lot, and I won't use the expletive, but I say using the word I'm busy or saying busy is like the F word. The more you use it, the less power it has. If you drop an F-bomb out of nowhere, and I don't know that you swear very much at all, but do you swear, use coarse language very much at all?
Sometimes I do, not a lot.
Right. So if you were to drop it out of nowhere, you'd be taken aback, right? Like my mother-in-law, she rarely swears. I think I've heard her swear maybe twice. So when she swears, it's like, whoa, you mean business. But if you were to say F this, F that all the time, then that doesn't have any power, right? Like it just becomes like another adverb or adjective. Whereas same with the word busy. If you throw that word around like it's a badge of honor, then eventually it has no meaning. It has no power. Like when someone says I'm busy, yeah, everybody's busy. What are you busy about? There's another quote, I think, even the ants are busy, but what are they busy about? And I can't remember who said that out. But nonetheless, I think it was C.S. Lewis or somebody like that. But the bottom line is to foster that desire, you need to not just think about what you're doing, like planning is part of it, but reflecting is another huge part of it. And you can't undervalue that. There's a reason that there's an app called the 5-Minute Journal and there's a book called the 5-Minute Journal. It takes 5 minutes of your time to do this, and you can do it in any way you want. And the best thing is I think 5 minutes of your entire day is, I think, 0.3% or 0.03%. It's something ridiculously small like that. So when someone says, I don't have time to journal, I throw two things out. I throw that quantitative thing, which is like, this is 0.4% of your day. If you don't have 0.4% of your day time to reflect, something's wrong. And then the other thing I throw out, which is probably even more impactful, is I do another pattern break. How many of you are on Facebook? Invariably, everyone raises their hand. I'm like, if you're on Facebook, you're already journaling. You're just journaling for the world.
So
you know
good.
what I mean?
Yes.
Right? And I also say, wouldn't the world be a better place if some of the stuff that was put on Facebook was just put in a private journal?
Oh, beautiful.
And wouldn't it be just a better place? And wouldn't there'd be less regret? There'd be less vitriol?
And more authenticity.
Right. Well, I mean, it'd be more authentic because you can say what you exactly want and know there's no retribution. When I journal in my journal, which is the app I use, by the way, is called Day One. When I do that, no one sees that journal. My wife doesn't, they'll see it when I'm dead. And then I won't care because I'll be dead. So, I mean, but it's freeing, and I'm not worried about spell checking and stuff like that. I just want to make sure that I get those thoughts out of my head because then I can sleep better. I'm not putting on Facebook any political stuff, anything like that, because it's some of the worst things you can put out there. But I'm saying it where it counts, and I'm able to get it out of me so that it's not weighing me down.
Mike, this was amazing. I can talk to you forever, but I know you got to go. So real quick, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life, and where can people find you?
3 top tips. Number 1, capture everything, regret nothing. So when things come to your head, get them out of your head, put them down somewhere that you trust, whether it's an app or paper notebook or whatever, but don't think you will remember them because you will not. You can't remember everything. So number 2, I would say give your days and your time more definition. So define your days, theme your months, give yourself something for your brain to tether to so that when you're stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do now, your brain goes, well, remember, we have this monthly focus or we have this daily theme. 3rd is journal. Journal your life because it's your story. And looking at a calendar or looking at a planner from a year ago, you won't be able to tell what was really happening then. All you'll be able to see is the basic data. You want the metadata. You want the good stuff. So take 5 minutes out of your day, whether you do it in the morning, in the evening, whenever you do it, doesn't matter, and journal your life. And people can find me at productivityist.com, and on social, I'm at Mike Vardy on Twitter.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Orion. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.